So today we're going to talk about troubleshooting, and we can go to the next slide. That'll give us the sort of the agenda that we'll go through with troubleshooting. With most troubleshooting, most products, there's some really generic, basic first level things that we're going to do, and then we'll get into some very, very specific things that we can do, run, collect on the vast system to go over. We'll start with just talking about making sure it's in a ticket. We'll go through proper case framing, and I'll explain each of these as we dig deeper into them. Then we'll evaluate sort of the current state of the system, look at how we can collect some logs, and look at doing some problem isolation. Next slide. So starting with a ticket. Now, the reason we say this is because, as in everything in this modern age, right? We have lots of different ways to communicate with VAST. We have our support portal. We have the uplink system. We have Slack, external Slack for some people. We have email. We have the phone numbers. So what we're trying to do with very specifically when talking about troubleshooting, we don't want to limit any of the other communication. That's the whole co-pilot model. VAST is not a break-fix troubleshooting support system. But when we're looking at exploring something as a particular issue, what we want to do is make sure we get a ticket. Getting a ticket makes sure that we all have one place to go, one central source of information, one ID number that we can reference, that we know where everything is in reference to this particular issue, right? So we want to make sure we get that ticket, even if it's something that you approach somebody with on external Slack, if that's a way you choose to communicate with VAST. One of our engineers, when they're interacting with you, if they feel that this is getting into more of, rather than just like, oh, hey, how do I do this, but into actual discussion or something that we need to look up, right, they will file it with a ticket. The other thing that's critical with a ticket, we have lots of different ways that we interact, right? And interacting with Slack or email or phone, right, has its advantages and disadvantages. But for you, for the customer, if it's something that you need to be sure someone follows up with an SLA, okay, the dreaded word, but it's fine. It helps us manage the relationship between us. If you want to make sure somebody follows up with that in a timely fashion, make sure it's in a ticket, right? If you post something at 2 o'clock at night on a Saturday and it's I woke up in the middle of the night and I just had to text this, right? Okay, somebody will see that. They will get back to that. But if it's something going on with the system or something you need investigated and you need an answer in a timely fashion, make sure we've got a ticket, right? Because if we have that ticket, the clock starts. We know that it's something serious that needs a response within a specific time period. Next slide. So proper case framing. Okay, now we've decided that this is something that we need to actually put into a ticket, right, that we want to track between us. Now we want to make sure to properly frame the issue. And what this does, with most troubleshooting, again, we're talking still very generic here. Most troubleshooting is about understanding the environment we're in and limiting down the variables that we're dealing with, right? We all know that the VAST system is a very large cluster. It's got lots of different moving parts. And so when we're trying to isolate something, let's take, say, a performance issue, then we want to be sure that we're dealing with the very specific performance issue that we're talking about. So we want to look at timestamps. When are we running these tests? When are we making changes to the system? As Phil's shown, we have all sorts of audit logs, so it's very easy to go back and see when did something happen, when did somebody make a change, right? But it's still good when you're putting it into the ticket to say, hey, we were testing this at this amount of time. We can say which client we're coming from. We can say what the business impact is, right? Sometimes we're testing things because we're going to deploy some new system soon, right? So the business impact isn't that everybody performing such and such operation is down now, but it's critical. We're launching this service on a Monday, and we need the performance to be X, Y, and Z by then, right? Putting the business impact into the case is critical to helping us understand what we're looking at, when we need to get a response. Is this something that we're investigating and we can come up with, an answer from engineering in a couple days? Or is this something we need a mitigation tomorrow? We can come up with the final answer once we get that, but we need to mitigate it right now, right? So that's the business impact. And I know it seems crazy, but it's always good to make sure, and most people are very good about this, but when you've got a specific issue, when you've got a specific error message, when you've got a client or even an application that's returning you a very specific error, getting a screenshot of that error, copying and pasting the text for that error is critical, again, to helping make sure that's in the case, making sure that we're framing and limiting down what the issue is that we're working on. And then frequency of impact is just, is it happening every time? If we run the same test 3 times, the first time it takes a long time, the next 2 times it's much shorter. That type of information, everything that you're seeing, if it's relayed in the ticket and contained there, it helps us to understand, okay, at 4:09, John ran the test, but then he ran it again at 4:09 and 30 seconds, and that one was faster. So when I'm looking through the logs, I understand that the one I'm worried about is the 4:09 one because it was the one that took the most time, right? These types of information included in the framing of the ticket helps us when we're trying to troubleshoot it, and it just expedites the process of getting either a mitigation or an answer to the problem. And lastly, any specifics about the client, the protocol, the VIP pool, a lot of the things that Phil was showing in the diagrams, where you can see the data flowing through the system, right? You can see which VIP pools and see which user. Any of those additional details are fantastic to include in a case. Next slide. Now, evaluating the current states. Now we get to the juicy bits, right? So now we're talking about things that you guys can do. And again, we want all. I know I'm reiterating it, but that's the whole point on communication, right? Repeat, repeat, repeat. So putting any of this stuff in a ticket is fantastic. We have some of these commands. I'm not sure if anybody will have run them, but on the CLI, we have a program called clush. And what clush will do is allow the system to go out and talk to all of the nodes in the system. You can give it specifics. If you use the -A option, as we're talking about here, it will get all the nodes. You can limit it down so it does either just C nodes or D nodes. But anyway, the clush command, when you run something like clush-A uptime, what it tells us is goes out to every system that's currently online, and it will report back to you the uptime as though that command were run on the CLI of each individual system. So you'll run that command and you'll get some stuff back. It's important to collect all the output there because, again, it can tell us critical things. If it gives a failure when it's trying to talk to that system, if it has an error about the wrong SSH key, right? This is all incredibly useful stuff. It's great to run. Tells you if stuff has been up or not, right? It tells you the system uptime is what you're looking at here. So when you're running commands like this, right, it's going to reach out to each of the systems. It's going to tell you the system uptime. So if you've seen that a C node has been having an issue and it's been cycling, right, you can see, well, the underlying hardware is still online, so I'm probably not dealing with a hardware issue. It may just be a software issue. Again, all great and useful information to include in case. We have some scripts that you can run called find VMS, find leader. These just tell us the IP addresses of those particular boxes at the same time. We have lots of overlapping things when we do our bundles and when we do our analytics that we talked about that we collect. And if you have the uplink system, some of this stuff is duplicate, triplicate, but always great to include in a case. And then we have, using, again, that clush command, you can go out and reach out and get the Docker status for the containers that run on any of the particular node. The next thing we want to look at is, look at very specific events or activities that are taking place on the cluster. You can look at in the vCLI, which sort of gives you a CLI interface to the VMS. You can run commands to look at what tasks are currently ongoing on the system. You can look on the Linux hosts and look in the messages files or look in the D message that shows you sort of the console output of what's going on for the system, usually more related to hardware type impacts. And you can look at the services list, right? See what all the services are that are running on the machine, see if anything's having a particular problem. And then also talking about just sort of checking the state of the hardware with some of these vCLI commands. You can look at the state of all of the disks in the system. And again, this is stuff that can be available either in uplink or in bundles. But if you don't have any of those, or if you feel it's critical and germane to the particular issue that you're facing, running this type of stuff, especially at the time that you're seeing the incidents and including it in a case, beautiful, critical, because these are the type of things that are snapshot type commands that let us know what was happening at a particular time. Next slide, please. And then just talking about collecting logs. And again, I'll just reiterate, we have multiple ways we can collect logs. We can sometimes, depending on your integration with some of our systems, we can request logs from the system. Customers can always go into the support section and generate their own bundles, get those uploaded to us. You can even do that from the CLI. Again, if you don't have GUI access, if you've just got an SSH, you can go into the vCLI and get it to generate a bundle. And again, the great thing about taking a bundle is if you're having a problem at a particular moment, right? And I'll say this even about the type of bundles. There's many types of bundles, but the debug bundle grabs sort of a collection of the what we call trace files, which is the memory files, everything that's going on in the system at any particular moment. If you run one of those debug bundles, again, you want to get in touch with support, but if you run one of those, it will grab, again, a snapshot of information in time. And that's something that even if it doesn't upload, if it's having problems uploading, or that you have to take the bundle, download it because of the nature of your site and security, and then provide it to us in a different manner via Slack, via SFDC, via the support portal. As long as we've taken it, it's the taking of the bundle that's critical, because it grabs everything at that moment in time, and it allows us to then go back and look at it, especially for things that happens on night, weekends, holidays. We're a 24/7 support organization. There is always somebody there to help you. If you've got a ticket, somebody will follow up on it. But if your site is not connected, if you've got security requirements that have you run in an isolated manner, grabbing these bundles, even if they don't get uploaded in the particular moment, grabs that information in the snapshot in time and allows us to look into it when we're able to actually take a look at it and see what's going on with the system. And then there's also some extra commands of you can look into some of the different files and systems and collect various different logging information about what's going on with the Docker containers and so on and so forth. And I think that's about what I wanted to talk about. Next slide, I think, is that problem isolation. So real quick, just the 5-second, again, we're just talking more about asking the different questions of framing where everything's at. Is it on the network? Is it a system issue? Is it a client issue? Just making sure to break it down there, all the different tests that you can do, and then let us know. Again, it's sort of like framing the case, but it's when you're dealing with a specific fault, you want to limit it down to the necessary components. The thing with troubleshooting is always, 1, making sure to collect information, 2, making sure to isolate out variables when you're trying to figure out what's going on.